The subject of today's video has one of the craziest and weirdest stories you're ever going to hear. He went from the #1 wide receiver in his class and a 5-star recruit to someone who only registered 1 total yard in the NFL. But that's not the craziest part. He was the son of a former NFL player, was teammates with 3 other NFL wide receivers, and out of all the things that can send someone's career on a downward spiral, a spider was a huge reason why this guy never ended up panning out. So yeah, you're probably wondering what the heck I'm talking about, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at his rise as a player, his crazy college football career, and why things ultimately did not work out for him. But right before we get into that, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and we need to make that better, so be sure to hit that button, smash that like button for the algorithm, and be sure to turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now, let's get started. So you're probably wondering who the heck am I talking about, and it is none other than former 5-star recruit and USC wide receiver George Farmer. But in order to understand what went wrong for him, we need to go back in time. Farmer grew up in the Los Angeles area and was the son of a former NFL player. His dad played for the Miami Dolphins, so football was instilled in him from a young age. He fell in love with the USC Trojans as well, and one day he actually got to meet a USC legend up close and personal. When he was in middle school, the Farmer family just so happened to live next door to Reggie Bush's biological father, so he did get a chance to meet him, and it was crazy. He eventually got to Junipero Serra High School and blossomed into a football superstar while he was there. He was a track star, had the necessary size, and had all the production to be a big-time player. He was not alone at that high school, as early on he got a chance to play with a guy by the name of Robert Woods. He was a USC legend, a big-time recruit, and has had a long NFL career, and Farmer probably thought he was the next version of him. Because of that, everyone knew where he was likely going to go. Farmer was a big-time recruit and decided to follow in the footsteps of his teammate and became a USC Trojan. He said, quote, "I called up Coach Kiffin and said I was ready to be a Trojan. He was real excited and so was I, and I'm ready to get there and help USC win a national championship. USC has great athletes, and my boy Robert Woods was there, and I just fit in really well." He went into even more detail about why he committed to the Trojans, and it was just never a shock to anyone. He said, quote, "It's hard to explain, but there was just something about USC. It's a great school, and it's where I always wanted to go. They send guys to the NFL every year, they're a great academic school, and they're very strong athletically. The whole recruiting process was starting to wear on me a little, and I'm just relieved and excited to have this decision behind me." By this time, Farmer was a 5-star recruit and the #1 wide receiver in his class. He'd even been named the National High School Player of the Year and was compared to the hype that Deshaun Jackson had in the LA area. His high school team was loaded with wide receiver talent, but he was still expected to be the best, but he ultimately was the worst. Paul Richardson went to that high school, and he eventually went to Colorado and had a decent NFL career, and his other teammate was a guy by the name of Marquise Lee. He was a big-time recruit on the trail as well, and when he got to USC, he had a pretty star-studded career, but unfortunately things never worked out in the NFL for him. So what was crazy is, Paul Richardson had the best career out of all 3 of those, and he was never expected to be much. Farmer was considered the best high school player in the state of California, and the best wide receiver, and he was ranked ahead of guys like Odell Beckham Jr. At 6'2" and 200 pounds, Farmer had the size, speed, hands, and playmaking ability to make an early impact at USC. He's a top 200 recruit of all time, and according to 24/7 Sports, he was a 5-star, the #1 wide receiver, and the 8th best prospect in the and the 8th best player in the class of 2011. So obviously, there was a lot of hype for him at USC. When he arrived at USC, they were under head coach Lane Kiffin, and were unfortunately dealing with some sanctions. He was originally going to redshirt, but Kiffin decided to move him to running back. He never really got to get going though, as he battled a hamstring issue, and missed out on a year with Matt Barkley. He did appear in 4 games, having a total of 4 catches for 42 yards and 5 carries for 15 yards. He was already behind the 8 ball, and things would only get worse as he had a nightmare encounter in his own backyard. Farmer was walking around his house one day when he was bitten by a brown recluse spider. The spider would bite him on the arm, and he had to have his arm scraped of poison that following week, and all the remnants of the bite were removed. You may be asking, what's so bad about a spider bite? Well, the brown recluse spider is considered one of the deadliest spiders in the world, and while it's only really killed children, this may have been the bite that killed his career. This set him back going into the 2012 season, and in 2012, he only had 1 catch for 7 yards total. Things would get even worse as in 2013, he would tear his ACL and MCL and miss the entire season, and many were wondering if he would ever save his career. Finally, in 2014, he would get going. He had a pretty decent role at the team, and in week 3 in a road loss to Boston College, he would catch his first career touchdown pass. Later on in a game against Cal, he would catch another touchdown pass, and he would have the game of his career against Notre Dame. In that matchup against the Irish, he caught 4 passes for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, and helped lead the Trojans to the Holiday Bowl. In that game, he caught 1 pass for 4 yards, and finished the 2014 season with 25 catches for 314 yards and 4 touchdowns. So yeah, he had gotten his career back on track at least, and while the production wasn't fully there, some of the potential he had was showing, and now if he just bounced back in 2015, maybe he could put himself on the NFL radar. Well, he made a decision that in hindsight was not very good. Despite a lack of production, he decided to declare for the 2015 NFL Draft. While I can't fully blame him for leaving early, but with those numbers, we rarely see players get drafted unless they're a freak of nature like a guy like Tyreek Hill. Obviously, he was not selected in the draft, but would sign with the Cowboys as an undrafted free agent, and he had the second highest signing bonus of any undrafted free agent. Unfortunately, he was cut. Unfortunately, just a few weeks later, he was waived by the Cowboys, but would get one chance with the Seattle Seahawks. Originally, he moved to the cornerback spot, showing how versatile of an athlete he was, but he was cut. He was later promoted to the active roster due to running back injuries, and believe it or not, he did appear in 2 games. He ended up running the ball 1 time for 1 yard. This wasn't exactly the kind of production that people were expecting from him coming out of high school, but at least he registered his name in the NFL databases. From there, he was promoted to the practice squad and cut, and this became a routine cycle for the remainder of that season, and he never really got his chance in the NFL. So yeah, a top 200 recruit and the #1 wide receiver in the class of 2011 only managed to get 1 yard in the NFL. He had enormous expectations for him at USC, and he never quite lived up to it. So you may be asking what went wrong for him. Well, it was a multitude of factors. The first one was that he was thrown into a position he did not play. Had he just redshirted and got familiar with the USC system, he could have been a dominant wide receiver there. Instead, he played a foreign position and the production wasn't quite there. He then got dealt an absolute horrible hand by getting bit by that spider, and that put him behind even more going into his second year. While he probably trained and recovered from that in 2012, he dealt with another injury that would sideline him for a year, and in total, he missed 2 seasons of playing. While he did bounce back a little bit in 2014, he should not have left for the NFL Draft and put himself way behind. Overall, if I had to pick one event that ruined his career, it would be the spider, as his sophomore year is when he could have broken out, and who knows if that injury would have been avoided. I'm not quite sure though. At least he did register 1 yard, and he had a good mindset from everything that happened. What do you guys think though? What's another crazy story? Who's a player I should take a look at next? And who is the best high school player you have ever witnessed? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section. Hit that like button if you want to support today's video. Share this video with your friends, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. And I hope to see you guys again soon. But until next time, peace.